If you think the Corvette has always been the untouchable king of American sports cars, wait until you hear about the Pontiac that came dangerously close to changing everything. This wasn't some fantasy concept dreamed up by designers and forgotten a week later. It was real. It ran. It drove. It was lighter than a Corvette, cheaper than a Corvette, and according to the people who built it, it had the potential to outperform a Corvette. In fact, it was so good that General Motors decided it was too dangerous to exist. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of the Pontiac Banshee, the sports car that may have been one of the greatest missed opportunities in automotive history. A machine so promising that its own parent company pulled the plug before it ever had a chance to reach showrooms. To understand why the Banshee became such a controversial project, you first have to understand what Pontiac was becoming during the early 1960s. For years, Pontiac had been viewed as a fairly conservative division inside General Motors, but that image was changing rapidly. Under leaders like Seaman Bunky Knudsen and later John DeLorean, Pontiac was transforming into one of the most exciting performance brands in America. It was becoming bold, aggressive, and willing to take risks that other divisions wouldn't dare consider. John DeLorean played a massive role in that transformation. Unlike many executives of the era, he wasn't interested in simply maintaining the status quo. He wanted Pontiac to lead rather than follow. He constantly pushed boundaries, challenged internal restrictions, and searched for opportunities that others overlooked. In 1964, General Motors had strict rules that discouraged placing large displacement engines into mid-size vehicles. DeLorean found a way around those restrictions. Instead of creating a completely separate model, he packaged a powerful 389 cubic inch V8 as an option for the Pontiac Tempest Le Mans. The result was the Gito, a car that many enthusiasts credit with launching the muscle car era. That success demonstrated exactly how far DeLorean was willing to go to achieve his vision. But while the Gito was grabbing headlines across America, something even more ambitious was taking shape behind closed doors at Pontiac. Deep inside the division, engineers and designers were working on a project that had the potential to redefine Pontiac entirely. The work began in August of 1963, and the goal was clear from the beginning. They wanted to build a genuine two-seat sports car. The project carried the internal designation XP833, though history would remember it by a much more dramatic name, the Pontiac Banshee. Officially, the XP833 was presented as a response to the Ford Mustang. That was a clever strategy. The Mustang had exploded onto the market and shocked the entire automotive industry with its popularity. Every manufacturer wanted a piece of that success. By positioning the XP83 as a Mustang competitor, DeLorean made the project seem less threatening to General Motors executives. The reality, however, was very different. The Banshee wasn't being developed as another pony car. It wasn't designed like a Mustang at all. It was engineered as a true sports car from the ground up. DeLorean worked closely with engineer Bill Collins, who served as one of the key technical minds behind the project. Together, they created something that stood apart from virtually everything else in Pontiac's lineup. The foundation of the car was a compact 90-inch steel platform chassis. Compared to the larger and heavier frames used under many GM vehicles at the time, this setup promised significantly better agility and responsiveness. Covering that chassis was a sleek fiberglass body shaped around classic sports car proportions. It featured a long flowing hood, a low stance, and a short rear deck that instantly communicated performance. Two fully drivable prototypes were eventually completed. The first prototype was a silver hardtop coupe powered by Pontiac's new overhead cam inline-six engine. It would eventually debut in the 1966 Tempest, but the Banshee got an early taste of the technology. Even more impressive was the car's weight. The silver hardtop tipped the scales at only 2,200 pounds. The second prototype took a different approach. Finished as a white convertible, it was equipped with a V8 engine and represented the higher performance side of the project. That weight figure deserves special attention because it explains why General Motors became so nervous. At just 2,200 pounds, the hardtop Banshee was nearly 800 pounds lighter than a comparable C2 Corvette. 800 pounds isn't a minor difference. That's the kind of weight reduction that transforms how a car accelerates, corners, brakes, and feels on the road. It effectively places the vehicle into a completely different performance category. Even the heavier V8 convertible remained astonishingly light. It weighed approximately 2,862 pounds, still around 500 pounds lighter than the Corvette. Pontiac's plans extended far beyond the initial prototypes. Engineers envisioned multiple engine options, including various V8 combinations capable of producing well over 300 horsepower. In a vehicle that lightweight, the resulting power-to-weight ratio would have been extremely impressive. Performance estimates suggested that the Banshee could comfortably compete with the Corvette and perhaps even surpass it in certain situations. Reports from the development period claim that the V8 prototype was capable of reaching 60 miles per hour while remaining entirely in second gear. For the mid-1960s, that was serious performance. The engineering wasn't the only impressive aspect of the project. Their combined efforts produced a shape that looked futuristic without appearing unrealistic. The car managed to be aggressive, elegant, and purposeful all at the same time. Its appearance was unlike anything else wearing a Pontiac badge. Yet one of the most fascinating elements of the entire project was hiding beneath the hood of the 6-cylinder version. In the context of American automotive engineering during 1964, Pontiac's overhead cam inline 6 was remarkably advanced. Most domestic engines relied on traditional pushrod layouts. Those engines were durable and inexpensive to manufacture, but they weren't exactly cutting-edge technology. The overhead cam design represented a different philosophy. By placing the camshaft directly in the cylinder head, engineers achieved improved airflow, more efficient combustion, and greater high RPM capability. In standard form, the engine produced 165 horsepower. On paper, that may not sound extraordinary. Inside a 2,200-pound sports car, however, it became a completely different story. The Banshee didn't rely solely on brute force. Instead, it embraced principles that were more commonly associated with European sports cars. Lightweight construction, balanced handling, efficient engineering, and intelligent performance took priority over sheer engine displacement. It represented a fresh approach to American sports car design. Ironically, that innovative thinking became part of the problem. The Banshee wasn't merely threatening because it could be fast. It was threatening because it suggested an entirely different path forward. Buyers could potentially get sports car performance without paying Corvette prices. They could enjoy lightweight handling without sacrificing American styling or practicality. By 1964, DeLorean was ready to present the project to General Motors management. Both prototypes were showcased alongside detailed plans for production. The reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Executives admired the styling. They appreciated the engineering. Everyone understood that Pontiac had created something special, and that's exactly why the project became dangerous. General Motors maintained a strict internal hierarchy among its divisions. At the top of the performance ladder sat the Corvette. It wasn't simply another vehicle. It was Chevrolet's halo car and one of General Motors' most important symbols of performance. The Banshee threatened that position. If customers could achieve similar results for less money, what would happen to Corvette sales? Executives also understood who was leading the project. John DeLorean had already proven with the Gito that he could work around corporate limitations. For many executives, that scenario was unacceptable. The decision was made. Development stopped. Project XP833 was canceled before it ever reached dealerships. But the story doesn't end there. In one of the most ironic twists in automotive history, General Motors soon found another use for the Banshee. After canceling the project to protect the Corvette, GM transferred the XP833 clay model to Chevrolet's design department. A memo dated September 10, 1965 instructed designers to revise the XP833 clay model according to Chevrolet requirements for a 2-passenger sports car. The result was extraordinary. Many of the ideas developed for the Banshee ultimately influenced the design of the 1968 C3 Corvette. Think about how incredible that is. General Motors canceled the Banshee because it threatened the Corvette, then used the Banshee's design language to help create the next generation Corvette. You couldn't invent a more ironic ending if you tried. The prototypes themselves nearly disappeared forever. During that era, General Motors routinely destroyed concept and prototype vehicles once their usefulness ended. Crushing them was standard procedure. Fortunately, the Banshee received a last-minute rescue. Engineers Bill Collins and Bill Killen reportedly hid the prototypes in shipping containers, protecting them from destruction. The cars remained hidden for years before the engineers eventually purchased them directly from General Motors. Because of their efforts, both original XP 833 prototypes still exist today. The silver hardtop has appeared at prestigious automotive events, including exhibitions at Meadowbrook Hall Concours d'Elegance, allowing enthusiasts to see one of the most important lost sports cars in American history. The Banshee's influence extended far beyond those surviving vehicles. Anyone comparing the XP 833 with the 1968 Corvette can immediately spot the similarities. The proportions, the long hood, the short rear deck, and the overall stance reveal a clear connection. The Opel GT, introduced in 1968, also carried styling cues that strongly echoed the Banshee's appearance. Meanwhile, the first-generation Pontiac Firebird adopted taillight designs remarkably similar to those seen on the XP 833 prototypes. So even though the Banshee never reached production, parts of its Dina still found their way onto public roads. Today, all that remains are two surviving prototypes, scattered photographs, and decades of speculation from enthusiasts who wonder what might have happened if General Motors had made a different decision. But perhaps that's why the Pontiac Banshee remains so fascinating. More than 60 years after its creation, people are still talking about it, still debating its potential, and still imagining the roads it never got the chance to travel. For a car that never entered production, that's an incredible legacy. And maybe that's the clearest proof of all that the Pontiac Banshee was far more than just another canceled prototype. It was one of the greatest what-if stories the automotive world has ever known.